Hi, this is Lori. I'm back again this week with another sketchbook for my dissertation. This is book number 2. So last week I looked at book number 1, which described the problem and also talked a little bit about the literature, so kind of gave us references. In this book, what I'm looking for is something a little less, I'll show you the binding. This is a Coptic stitch binding with 2 hardcovers. This is Masonite covered with Collage. And this, what I decided to do is restrict my palette. It was a little colorful last time and a little bit chaotic, so I thought if I try a black and white book, that might work. The other thing that I started to develop in this book is a set of themes, and we're going to see those and I'll discuss them as we go along. But what I was looking for is, this is a book about the study itself, the structure of the study. So most of these are like structural images and signs. You know, what am I looking for? What am I trying to get to happen? And they're all black and white, but in different ways. So this right here is a watercolor, and I used masking fluid for the towers, masking fluid for the signs here. This was a quick study I did during my study of some of my student works that they were working on, how their setup was, their tools. And I did a series of signs. So while I was doing this study, I was driving back and forth from Indianapolis to Bloomington. And when I went at night, I could see those roadside signs lit up. And I kind of saw those as not an omen, but kind of an indicator of like, here's where to go. Here's how to, here's the information you need. So here's a page with some black and white papers, collage. And then this is black spray paint, and what I'd used here is a white gel pen. I like these jelly roll pens, they work great. Here's some outlines. Again, I was kind of looking for signs for kind of my individual participants, the communication structures. These were done with frisket, which is or masking fluid, and black spray paint. I sort of masked off. I put some newspaper under here, and then just did a light coat with a flat black black spray paint. This is all watercolor. Another sign that I saw. The text is a variety of notes about setting up my experiment, about the research on experimental design. Some of the different kind of structures. I was thinking of human structures, what framework keeps us going, and then some black and white paint samples down here. Another sign. This is kind of an anomaly, just a short little storytelling, like Greek pot, where there's an artist teacher of the students here. In this one, more of these kind of communication towers of me teaching about my students, how do I communicate, whether it's the structure I will use. Again, human structure, his teeth structure. I was just really examining what holds up our framework. My husband is a union plasterer, so I did the scaffolding and plastering. Again, another sign. At this point, I was kind of thinking, all right, what are my themes that I'm using? Here is some old textbook. This is a geometry textbook, and I used Collage to glue all that white. I mean, it's white, but it's got a hint of color there. And then this is done with teeny tiny strips of construction paper and glued those structures. Again, I'm kind of having that recurring theme. And within there are these little lines and stuff, and I covered this whole thing with wax medium called Dorland's wax medium. I'll link it down in the bottom because it's a wonderful surface, and it's so tactile. I had other comments that I meant to put in about my study, and so I added those into the threads that bind the page together. This is kind of the introduction of a crow, and the crow is going to return in every book, kind of as a self-portrait, a bit of an idea. I've always liked crows. They are clever, they're bossy. They're also, they like shiny things, they like to collect, and they're very intelligent. And so I kind of took those attributes on as my own. So we're going to see crows throughout these books. Again, some more little flags that I put in to talk about issues that I didn't fit on the page. And again, another page of a collage with the little construction paper lines, some ink lines, and then the whole thing covered in a wax medium. All right, and then these are some of the methods for doing member checks and peer debriefing. That these are all components of a study, but I like the crows all coming together and talking, and a watercolor tree. More birds. This is all done again in black watercolor. This is a transfer here using a solvent to print something on a piece of paper backwards, put it face down, and then use a solvent to transfer these letters. It comes out really nice. Here's another piece of a sign, only this time it's done with collage. These are all like little torn paper squares, and then the geometry textbook, and these are all cut out of black construction paper. Little homage to Banksy, done with stencils and black spray paint. More black spray paint done with some resist here. So resist is a thing that you paint on. And again, frisket is another name for that. But you paint that on, you paint over it, and then you rub that off. It's kind of like rubber cement. It's not rubber cement, but it's kind of like that, where you can roll it with your fingers and roll it off, and then it shows the white underneath. So I use that quite a bit. Now at this point, I feel like I have so many themes going on. So I have the communication structures, the signs, black and white, the different types of structures. And I kind of wanted to bring things together along with the landscape. And so this is an interesting page. So this is a railroad crossing that I would stop by on my way to my job. And I tore this page and this page down. So these are partial pages, so just rip those pages off. And I did my landscape across the whole. And then within the structures, I returned to this, this image of the creative process. This is the paper collage with the geometry book and construction paper. And then over here, I've got the signs done on this spread, and then another torn page here with another structure, and that same image that we talked about earlier, the creative process, which makes for a really interesting and kind of interactive set of pages here. And I really like doing this because it feels very much like a refrain or a nod to my structure. And then here's another where I've got a landscape of driving home at night with the cars in front of me. I would just grab my cell phone and take a quick picture while I was stopped at a sign. Another communication structure in here. Another Greek pattern here, and the crows across here. These are all notes about my my study at the bottom. But this was the I think the turning point in my work, thinking about how there were different themes that I was working with within the book. And again, just to kind of reiterate, landscapes, structures, these communication towers, the signs, the collage of geometry paper, the books with the collage, the cutout construction paper lines, and the birds. And so those run through the whole thing, kind of culminating in some of these pages here at the end where I bring all that together. So that is book number 2. You can go back and look at book number 1 and also my pre-dissertation study with the mini books. They are all going to be put together in a playlist, so you can look at those whenever you want. And next week I will come back and we will look at book number 3. So this is book number 2 of a 5-book series. And I want to thank you for watching. I do have some notes down in the comments below, so you can see links to the wax that I used for the covers. Also, it's got a nice sheen to it, and some what I'm calling frisket or masking fluid, so you can see what those items are. Finally, I had mentioned that this was a Coptic stitch. And I have a video on how to make Coptic stitch books if you would like. What I love about Coptic stitch is that you can use any kind of firm cover And then I glued like page 1 down to kind of attach it to the book block here. So this cover is sewn directly on here. I love this type of book because it lays flat for working. When I do this with my students, they don't like this gap, but I have learned to ignore the gap. Sometimes I'll cover the gap with different papers or things. This is a case where it's covered, but it lays flat and is a great book, a great binding to make a book for a sketchbook because you can work completely flat. All right, thank you for being here, and I'll have another one out next week.